So, James, it is always an honor to talk to you. You were the first creator that I'm sure you hear this like all the time from other creators, but you are the first person that I really ever saw online in the sense of like somebody who had their own thing going outside of just like a little viral video here and there. You had genuine series and you kept at it with different reviews and short films, and you also had your entire back catalog of the films you made as a child, through your teenage years, through your college years, all of that. And I remember I first discovered you when I was way too young to. I remember, I think I was just like looking up stuff online here and there, and I remember stumbling upon like the trailer for the Simpsons Angry Video Game Nerd episode, and I didn't even know how to click on links back then. I didn't understand the idea of links. I didn't understand to copy and paste them, so I literally manually entered the link into the URL, and then I remember hitting play, and then I remember the theme song starting off, and right when I heard like the first line with a swear in it, I immediately was like, oh no. I paused it because I was playing it out loud and my mom was home, and then I would just, instead of just stopping watching, I just ran to get headphones instead, and I just continued watching. And ever since then, like, I was just always like consistently watching your stuff. Great like feeling of like, wow, this guy really understands like what it means to be kind of like a filmmaker on a budget, or somebody that's just like, you don't have like an immediate connection to like how to make films in Hollywood or something, but then you ended up doing that. And it was just this really like kind of really cool inspirational like story, just watching your stuff throughout the years. One of my favorite videos still is Cinemassacre 200, just seeing how you made stuff back then and how that evolved over the course of your filmmaking career. And I remember back then, like, it was just the suspension of disbelief just seeing you mimic how you would edit on like VCRs and all of that. I remember back then, because I was much younger and I didn't really think through things, I was just like, wow, he has archival recordings of him editing on VCRs, and instead it was just like you mimicking how you would do it.
Oh yeah, like a flashback.
Yeah. But overall, it's, I just kind of wanted to say like my history with watching your kind of your content, and it's an honor to be talking to you now. It's an honor to have worked with you in the past. It's been a weird kind of just feeling to be able to do that, but thank you so much for talking with me today.
Oh yeah, thanks so much for thinking of me. Like, I'm honored too that you included me, and it's always been a pleasure every time we meet for Too Many Games.
Yeah, we first met at 2019's Too Many Games, and that was a surreal experience for me. That was my first convention ever. It's really weird to meet people that you've watched online, because it doesn't feel that weird, but it's also kind of like when you look back at it, it's really strange, because like, you've never met this person before, you genuinely know nothing about their personal life, but like you've heard them talk like unscripted so many times in the context of a YouTube video that it's just kind of like, it doesn't feel that weird to hear from them in person. But I thought I just I kind of wanted to ask you, just because I'm going through the I feel like I'm kind of going through a lot of like what you went through with the nerd, with just like kind of putting out so much stuff. Back then you would do like 2 episodes a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like 2 episodes, and you were under contract to do so, correct? Like it was like through game trailers, and like it was some big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like how much did that really like affect like your schedule? Because I look back at the stuff you were putting out back then, and looking at the sheer quantity and quality of it, it was insane how much stuff was put out back then. Terms of AVGN movie reviews, still some short film stuff, and location tours, all that, and still maintaining a website, going to conventions, all of that. I'm just wondering, like, how was like your creative process back then, and also general schedule, especially compared to now with kids and a house, a wife, all of that. Like, how much has that changed? And like, what was it back then? What was it now? What is it now?
Oh, I guess short answer is it just gets busier and busier, you know. But I do remember uh, in the year 2008 specifically, I remember being really sick for like a long time, like 6 months. I was like sick, like on and off, and like losing my voice sometimes. And I remember some of the videos that got made during that time was like Mario 3, and just how, because you know, like when it's like you're working on a video and you're not sleeping and you're going like all through the night and everything, it's like you know your immunity goes down and you start getting sick a lot easier. But then I look back and it's hard to remember the sickness and all that and all the weirdness. You just look at the video and you're like, oh wow, that was a good video. Yeah, I want to do another one like that. So then as the memories kind of fade, you start to get reminded of that again, because in 2021 we started doing 2 episodes a month again. Not every month of the year, but we did the most episodes in 2021 since 2014, which is debatable because 2014 had the 12 days of Shitsmas. Those were kind of produced all together, even though they are separate videos. So if you don't count that, 2021 was the most videos since 2009. And I remember, like, it was like, oh my God, like this is insane. And not to mention there's COVID and everything. And it was like, you know, well, I guess we were thinking COVID was going away that year, but it didn't. And then, you know, the family's sick all the time. Everybody, somebody's always sick, you know. And I just remember 2021 kicked our ass so hard. It was just like the old days where it's like, because some of those edits were, I mean, the scripts too. I remember just like writing those scripts, going and going and going. Like Commodore 64 was a huge one, and then the Freddy Jason Halloween episode, and then episode 200. Like, well, okay, we're gonna do every LJN game, like finish all the LJN games. It's like, wow. Not to mention have a story arc on top of it, with like the nerd creating his own game, and we actually made a playable game for that, and that Sam made, and having him as a character in it, and then the nerd realizing how hard it is to make these games and has a whole story arc. It was like, oh my God, like we really like just beat ourselves senseless.
It always just feels weird to look at, because now the expectations are so high for pretty much everybody making videos, to make them like longer and bigger and all of that. And it's something where it just kind of feels like, you know, looking back at your old stuff, you know, like, oh, you know, it was shorter, but it's also like, you know, you had to put out more of it. But now it's kind of like, okay, well, now you can kind of put out a little less of it, but now it has to be a little longer and all of that. So it's just kind of like, you know, what do you prefer? Do you prefer like kind of making the shorter videos, but more of them, or just kind of like waiting a little bit and making one big long thing?
I think my preference would change year to year. So last year it was like we just had all these great ideas. We were making them, and then episode 200 was like a 75-minute video. When you put all together, it's like a feature length video in 3 parts, but still. So this year we're doing more like less but longer. And I mean, not that long, but like Contra was a really big one, and Last Ninja. We just put out a Doom episode, and that was huge, with like so many effects and so much photoshopping in it. Kieran was doing all that animation at the end with the whole like POV of the nerd going into the wall and talking to John Romero, and then I was doing a lot of the Photoshop of like the fake Doom games and everything. Then we had people send in some, like the Tiger Electronics one. Team Legend did that for us. Yeah.
How much has it really like changed in terms of like kind of bringing more people on? Because that's a hard thing to do. I found that it's really hard to do that, to kind of like find people where it's just like kind of like explain your creative process to them. And a lot of times, like, either people get it or they don't, and it's really hard to find like people to truly work with. So like, how hard was it for you to find like people to like work with and work with you on these episodes? Because, you know, like Mike helped you out you know, throughout all the early years, and still a little,
he
still here and there now
too. Like he did some of the Doom fake games. He recorded some of the clips that we needed. So he still helps.
How does the collaboration process work with this? Like, how do you kind of like organize, like, okay, who's doing what here? And like, okay, I'll do this, but you should, you know, can you do this here separately? Because that's something I myself am trying to, you know, work on with my general group. because they've helped me out throughout the years in terms of just like being like little like on-screen characters here and there. But now they're much more willing to, like, hey, I can capture this gameplay here and there, or I can like help you edit this or something like that. So like, how does that collaboration process work for you?
Generally, it goes like, I'll write the script. That's always the first thing. And once I have it all down and I know exactly what we're doing, I'll be like, all right, guys, here's what we're going to do. Here's the script. Basically, we need to shoot it. So I'll have a shot list depending on what kind of shots are in the video. I'll get some people over to help me record it. Like the Doom episode, we had like a big scene with a BFG that was made for us. Well, not for us, but we borrowed it. Basically, after we're done shooting, then I'll oversee the edit. Usually I have someone else doing like the whole rough edit. Everything's going together, and they're going off of my script, because you have the script. If there's any part in it where it makes more sense for me to just edit, like it's harder to explain, then I'll just edit those parts. But it's a simultaneous thing where it's a whole collaborative effort. So my script will have time codes to the game a lot of times, like, which I do anyway. Like, I don't know if you do that too, but when you're playing the game and you're taking the notes and you're going to want to go back and find that part in the gameplay footage, you got to write that note with that time code down so that you know how to find it again. So instead, I'll just give it all to somebody else. Be like, here's all the stuff. Here's all the parts you need. Go off of this, and then you look at it later and be like, okay, well that part that's not right. Change that here, and then so you're kind of directing the edit while working on your own parts for it. And then you can sometimes I even start writing the next episode while Kieran is editing, and at the end, usually it's like, okay, here's some last minute changes. Can you do that for me? And then, because there's so much at the end, like color correction and then mixing the audio. It's like, do you want to be doing the color correction and mixing the audio and everything?
God, no, I'm colorblind, and that's something I'm just like, oh man, I need to outsource this potentially.
Oh, but, yeah, I understand. Yeah.
That stuff is horrendous to do.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I just don't even do it, and like people are like, the audio's spiking here, man. And I'm just it wasn't spiking for me. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's the nitty gritty.
Yeah, I think I remember you said there was an episode that you didn't color correct. It was Silver Surfer, where it's just like, it was just this orange hue. But I think that kind of helped the episode stick out a little more, because it was just like, oh, that was the orange one. That was just kind of like, that was just kind of fun about it. I don't know. It does. Yeah. It's just like a lot of mistakes like that sometimes do kind of end up working out. I don't know. But speaking of editing, I just wanted to talk about, like, you still use a Mac, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm also on the Mac train. It's hard to find people. It's hard to find people like us online. Like, so it's just like, I assume it's because like you've just kind of stuck with it because like from what I've like heard from people, it's kind of like Mac was kind of like pushed as like, this is the like computer to use in like film school and like editing and all that. But then like eventually, like I think like when Apple kind of like started introducing like Final Cut Pro 10 or X, then it kind of like, okay, this is a little too much like iMovie or something like that. So it's just like people, that's the editing software I use. So it's just like I still just use Final Cut Pro X or 10.
Oh,
whatever
you
it
do?
is.
Okay, so you use the newest version of Final Cut.
Yeah. I think you said in like a podcast that you switched over to Premiere.
Yeah, and also Premiere is the same on PC. So basically you can swap back and forth. Like I've sent project files to somebody on a PC before, and like we've like I remember when I was doing the Las Vegas episode, the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas spoof. I remember I did a whole cut minus effects, like a whole cut of just like, here's all the clips and everything, and then sent the project file over and like, here, finish up all the green screen, all the effects, everything. And I sent it on a PC, and Kieran was able to open it on his PC, and it relinks everything. And then we can send it back and forth. So it actually does work. You wouldn't think, but it works.
Like, did you send like a hard drive in the mail, or did you like send it via like a Google Drive link or something, or how did you send that? It seems like kind of like a weirdly basic question, but it's I've never really sent like editing files to people, so I'm not sure.
Oh yeah. Well, we've gotten smarter with that. Like we send it to each other via online, I guess. So it's like before
Okay.
we used to have hard drives and used to like have somebody run them back and forth, but that actually takes longer. It's quicker to upload something nowadays. Back then, not as much, but now it's the internet's gotten better and technology has improved. So it's not a problem anymore.
I've always considered like at least like learning Premiere because it's just like I just think that's good to have because like you said like when Apple updated Final Cut X, you were just kind of like, I don't know about this, so it's just like kind of stick with the original version and then just switch to Premiere. So it's just like I do like Final Cut X because it has pretty much everything I need. I think like if you learn that as like your first one and you're not going from like the original to it, then it's an easier pill to swallow. But what I really like about it is like rendering is pretty much all done in the background. Like the files just render in the background as like you're doing stuff. So like I can't imagine living without that. What is your general like schedule like these days with especially with kids? Because I just recently got, well, like within the past like year or so, I recently got like a house, and just upgrading to that, like it's just been this huge like, oh my god, there's so many more things that I have to do like around the house and errands to run and all of that. So I'm just wondering, like, you know, adding all this stuff to your life and having to still do these videos that just, you know, it takes so much time. Like how do you schedule things out? How do you get things done with so much going on in your life? Because it's just like, do you ever feel like it's always hard to like kind of sit down and just be like, I'm just working right now, especially when you do it from home. Because if there's a situation going on where it's just like, hey, somebody needs this, somebody needs that, somebody needs groceries, somebody needs help, somebody needs to be picked up, it's just like, why would I say I can't do it right now? Like, it's just like, of course I can do it right now. I can leave my house whenever I want. So you know, how do you schedule things out like that?
Well, before, like many years ago, it was a mess. It was just like working all hours of the night and everything. And now it's 9 to 5 weekdays. So it's like I'm done every day, and then I take over with the kids, and then I'm, you know, father on the weekends, and then I go back to editing videos on Monday. So that's how it works for me.
That does seem like the healthiest possible thing you could be doing. So
yeah, it is,
you know,
healthy. It's definitely much healthier than it was. That was some crazy stuff back then. I
heard something in a behind the scenes video where you were pretty much doing like a special effects shot for the Nerd movie, and it was like you set the fire alarm off or something like that. Yeah. And that just makes me wonder, like, how was it going from, you know, because like, you know, you went to film school and you you know, learned all of this, you know, actual filmmaking knowledge, and you've always wanted to make films, and being able to actually do that with the Nerd movie, like, how was that transition going from doing online content for so many years and then to a feature film with like hundreds of people involved? How was that kind of like working on that? And kind of, because like it is for sure like completely different, but you know, there's probably like a couple of like glaring similarities between the two mediums.
You know, films are what I started doing, so I was kind of thought of the Nerd episodes as kind of like little films in a way sometimes. So there's like short films I make, and then there's like Nerd episodes, which sometimes if I have an idea for a movie, maybe I'll put it into a Nerd episode in a way, kind of like the Polybius episode. It was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to make some kind of found footage, you know, urban legend horror movie? Oh, well, here's a game that fits into it. You know, why don't you make it as a Nerd episode instead? And then there's
I thought that sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
I thought
right.
that was an incredible that really did show like your potential as like doing like a full-length horror film. I just felt like everything was like really well done in that one, just very atmospheric. I loved there was like the shot where I think you were playing the arcade cabinet, and then like in the reflection of the other one, like it kind of changed. I thought that was brilliant. And around that time,
cool.
That was my first year doing videos on my own, and I was like, I'm gonna do Polybius for my Halloween special. And then I randomly thought I was in college during that year, and I was sitting in a lecture class, and I randomly thought, I don't know why I randomly thought, I'm just like, man, it would make sense for like an angry video game nerd episode on Polybius. And then it happened, and I was like, damn it.
Oh.
But it's just like they were pretty different, so it didn't
Oh
matter.
yeah.
In the end,
Well, you know
but,
what's really funny? For whatever reason, that year there was like a whole bunch of Polybius videos that came out, and they were all very different.
Yeah.
But it was just
Yeah.
strange that why that was like the year of Polybius for. Like it wasn't like an anniversary or anything. It was just everybody was doing Polybius.
I'm not sure, but I don't know. But you were saying about just making all the different nerd episodes kind of like movies. I think the question was like about editing and creating web content, comparing that to like going to feature film.
Yeah, I mean it was definitely like the effort of like thousands of web videos combined. The amount of time it took to make the feature film. And yeah, there probably was over 100 people, probably, especially in post. Like once we were editing, even if there was somebody who like did the effects for like one shot, if you add up all those people, it probably was over 100, I'd say.
And you did you still like edited a fair amount of that, right? Like I think in the credits it said like you were kind of like the general editor, like you kind of edited the final cut, I guess.
Yeah, I was the general editor, but we had a lot of people helping with the edit too. Like there were a lot of people who would work on like a rough edit of a scene and send it to me. And this is when we were using Final Cut 7 still. So everybody was on Final Cut 7 then, who we were working with, and I would just take like the rough edits and start putting them together into the main thing. And if there anything that I wanted to change, like I think that there's a better take of this or something, I would do all that. And then we had Dimitri doing the whole sound design on it, and we had Bear doing the music, and lots and lots of people working on the VFX at the end. But I was kind of like in the last stretch of it, that final year, I was like managing all those people to get everything in. And yeah, it was a great experience though. It was really great, like just kind of every day just cycling through emails and like checking everybody's shot. It was kind of like Christmas, every morning waking up and you're like, oh, let's see what they finished here. And then and it was like, oh, okay, cool, can you fix this part, whatever. And then taking it and filling in all those empty holes, all those empty effect shots. It was like so satisfying seeing it all come together.
How was it kind of going from like kind of doing most of the stuff like by yourself or with just like people that friends, to kind of managing this big team, because like that's something that's been a weird like transition for me whenever I have to do that, because I've never really seen myself as like I'm gonna be the huge leader of all of this or anything, so it's kind of hard to really like just channel this weird kind of management energy when it comes to like working on big projects. So it's just like, how was that for you to kind of go from working on a lot of this stuff by yourself to like working, I mean, this can also be like talked about with like recently, where it's just like now you're working with more and more people, so it's just like how has it felt kind of transitioning to going by yourself to working with a bunch of different people?
Like I think of it in two stages. I think of it as like what it was like on set, and then what it was like, managing all the post effects and sound and all that. The stuff where it was all at my computer was a lot more, I wouldn't say relaxing, because it was like constant, and it was a lot to do. But the fact is, I'm at my computer, so it didn't really. It wasn't as strenuous. I mean, as like going into like the desert and like just having all these logistical problems, and then the electric goes out, and it's like fuck, everything's going wrong, and then there's a dust storm, and then it's you're not dealing with that kind of thing. You're just at your computer. Now it's just a management of getting everything done in a reasonable time, and it's not like there was any deadline for the movie either, but I just felt like I wanted it. If I would have worked on it at a leisurely pace, it would have taken years and years, like more. And I was like, well, let's get it done this year and premiere it, and then we could all move on to the next things,
You filmed like some extra little projects around the time you did the nerd movie. I think you did like the Jekyll and Hyde trailer, the Astro Bastards trailer, all of that kind of stuff. And you also, wrote your own book and all that. I'm just wondering, like, what you kind of foresee in the future. I know right now it's really hard to kind of get, like, anything other than like just general, the general web content done because of like, the personal life stuff. But it's just like, do you foresee kind of doing another film in the future? Do you foresee kind of like doing different things in different creative mediums, whether that's like, audio only stuff or whatever? Just, do you kind of foresee, is there like another medium you would want to jump into, or would the next thing you want to do kind of go back to kind of doing more film stuff?
All of that. There's so many things I want to do. It's like you're always going to want to do everything. You just kind of have to pick one at a time what it is you're working on now. But working on a cover album, a music album of all like the most energetic movie montage songs mashed up with video game tunes and stuff. So working on that, and then also I'm writing another film, and so because I keep thinking of new ideas, and I've been really intrigued with an idea of a movie where it's all in one room, and with like few actors, like all just have you ever seen a movie where it takes place in one location but it's just really suspenseful?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of something like that, and also just to like dive into my weird like horror, like atmospheric horror kind of mood that I always get in, where it's like, okay, I know this is going to be weird for a lot of people, but for people who like that, who like really strange horror, like that's what I'm gonna do.
Imagine it be like a bottle episode of a show, but like a full feature. Would it be feature or short, do you think?
I think it just depends on the script, like when it's done, because a lot of times I write shorts, and other times, because it's like I don't really go into it thinking like, okay, well this has to be this length, so it all just depends how the script comes out. But I like what you said about the audio thing too, because I have thought about other mediums to tell my stories. Like, do all of them have to be films? Like some of them could be a book or a short written story, an audio story. Because I've thought of that a lot, because then there's nothing stopping you at all from making it. You can just, all it takes is just to write it then. So I'm kind of like contemplating all my ideas, being like, okay, well these ones could be like a short thing, this could be like a written or audio, and this will be the film that I spend my time on for the next few years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like it's already it's really cool to be able to kind of like look, because like when you're a kid, you kind of like, did you ever like conceptualize as a kid, it's just like, oh, I'm gonna make this movie and then it's gonna spawn off into this like merchandise or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And that's what I kind of thought. I would make like DVDs of my own stuff back then. I would make like VHS tapes, DVDs, and I would like make the boxes out of like cardboard, or I'd just draw the covers of DVDs and put them in the case or something. And to see like you kind of like jump into that with the Angry Video Game Nerd seasons on DVD, even like the Cinemassacre productions, like Dead or the Better, and like all the other ones. I think like it was like Cinematic Catastrophes was one of the DVDs.
Man, you've seen a lot of my stuff.
Listen, like when you're like what, 13 or something, you got nothing better to do online. You're gonna watch a lot of content.
Oh, that's
and
pretty awesome.
I wasn't able to buy it back then, so I ended up like buying a lot of that. Like I found some of them on like eBay, so I was just like, I should buy this, because it's just like, this is like my this is like my forbidden fruit from back then, because I never had the guts to ask my parents for to buy like one of the DVDs for me. Yeah, how does it feel to kind of like see a lot of that stuff like happen, especially like like with the video game release, especially like I got like a physical release last year, didn't it? So it's just like there's a lot of stuff that kind of felt like these like, at least to me, like it would kind of feel like these weird, like it's just like, oh, that would never happen kind of things, and to see it happen, to also see the process behind it, and see like, oh, maybe this portion is a little easier than I thought it would be, but this portion is really harder than I thought it would be. Like how does that feel to kind of see like just these like things just happen based on your creations, like kind of occur? Like how does it feel to just kind of like be behind a lot of these different mediums that maybe sometimes you never thought you'd be behind, I guess?
Oh yeah, I've never would have expected it. Yeah, it's always been surreal, and I'm always really happy for it. And it's like you're never gonna know exactly what's gonna happen when you go into arts and entertainment, and you have these ideas of things you're trying to do, but you just you take it one at a time, and then one of those things is going to catch on, and you're never going to know exactly which one it's going to be. So then you just go with it.
Yeah, like last year, we were able to do like an official like board game with Hasbro for like a Monopoly Scott the Woz edition, and just getting like those boards in and just seeing like that with like the official licensed logo and all that. It's weird. It's strange, but it's also like a cool feeling, and also to be able to see like the production behind that all. Did you like produce all those DVDs yourself in terms of like, you know, the menu setup, all of that like thing, like back in the day with like Screw Attack and all of that? Did you do all that like yourself, or did you get like somebody else to kind of help out with like the menus and just content, all that?
Oh, there definitely was a number of people who helped out with menus and the DVD design. I did quite a bit of them myself, but yeah, actually, I did a lot of the ones I remember where it's like, wow, because I haven't thought of this in a long time. I'm trying to remember, but like I remember doing one where it's like you see the games on the shelf and then like, you select the games and all that. Like I remember doing that and doing like tons and tons of Photoshop, but I haven't done one in a long time. And I know Blu-rays are more of a, well, I mean, Blu-rays are alive, but I mean, physical media is kind of more of a collector's thing, more of a novelty.
Mm-hmm. It feels like they've kind of become that, and also like gifts for like kids or something. Like I see a lot of kids content get like DVD releases and whatnot. So it's kind of yeah, it's really hard because I would love to do like a Blu-ray release eventually, but there's so much stuff in like the videos I produce where I'm really just kind of like, where does this lie, like in copyright kind of law kind of thing. And I'm just kind of, because like I've used like trailers and old commercials and stuff, and I'm just kind of like, you know, I think this would be okay, but I'm not sure kind of thing.
Yeah, the real answer is it's nobody knows. It's just a matter of opinion, really. Yeah,
you did those like once a year kind of thing, and that just kind of shows it's just like, Jesus Christ, like just seeing like all this stuff every year, and it's just like on top of, you know, like Monster Madness and all the other things that you did. You know, it's wild to just see how much, you know, you were able to do and still able to do like every year. You know, like it's very commendable, and you know, like I think that's really wild to see. Do you feel like your like upbringing with filmmaking, just kind of like always appreciating the more like B-movie style things, how they did things like the old way, just, you know, everything practical, everything's kind of in a like way where it's like, hey, just get it done, just try to like, just we're gonna make it happen no matter what, budget constraints, just setting constraints, whatever. Do you feel like that really helped out with like online content creation? Because I feel like that's kind of in some ways like the essence of what makes like YouTube compared to like other video mediums. Do you think that's kind of helped you excel in like the online content creation space?
Oh yeah, it was definitely like just tons and tons of practice. And when I was practicing and making short films, there wasn't really anywhere to show them. It wasn't like, aside from like copying VHS tapes for your friends and stuff, didn't exist anything like that. So I kind of got a lot of my crappy stuff out of the way before YouTube came, and then by the time that came, like I just knew what I was doing more. Like it's actually after I had graduated college, so I've been through everything before YouTube, and then it all started with a game review of a game that I didn't think anybody would care about, especially, you know, someone much younger. Like, who would care about these games that I grew up with? Like, that was what made it funny. I thought it was just like, hey, here's a grown adult complaining about this old video game. That's why it's funny. But it caught on, and then I also did I had a job editing safety videos and like instructional videos and stuff, and that kind of might have been some good practice for that too, because that was like, you know, you would, when you're talking about something and you show like a highlight, like you highlight the area on the screen, or like you have like a bunch of bullet points of like different like words showing up, and I narrated them too. I was the narrator of those videos, and because nobody else wanted to do it, so I got stuck with it. And
Yeah.
after all that, it was like it was almost like a little in joke. I was kind of making fun of those type of videos, but it actually was very applicable. It was functional for those videos, the nerd videos as well.
It really helps to add character because you know, a lot of times like I started doing kind of the highlight stuff too because like it helps, and it's also like, you know, it does kind of add a little bit of character, and I always thought those edits were just really just there was always like this fun, I don't know, they always stuck out in my mind. It's really weird to say that, but it's just like when you edit so much, you start to view like movies and videos, TV shows, all that a lot differently, because then you're kind of like looking at them like fourth dimensionally, just kind of thinking it just like, okay, what was the edit like this like, and like how did they do this kind of thing. It's always like I think editing so much, and then also watching like a lot of that stuff does help. Did you ever film and edit like wedding videos or anything like that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, mostly. Well, I did my share of both. I filmed and I edited, but usually not the same ones. Usually I was either filming or editing, but I did a lot of editing for like there's about a year or two where I was like mostly editing weddings.
I filmed like I would film and edit a couple weddings for like family members, and like the last one I did was like in 2018, and I was just like, I'm sorry, I'm done. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. It was always because at least like you were probably like, you know, kind of like contract to hire back then. Like you were just like, oh, you know, I'll edit, you know, that kind of thing. Mine was kind of like, oh, you know, Scott will film like our wedding, you know, like he's the videographer, editor of the family. And it meant like pretty much like throughout the entire wedding I was just running around, and I couldn't actually just sit down and enjoy like a family's wedding kind of thing. So it was just and like also editing that, I would have to like pretty much like with different angles, you'd have to relive the wedding like 3 different times pretty much, and couldn't really enjoy like the reception or anything. A lot of that stuff, like it's just like it is very like it was very like grueling to go through, but you know, hey, somebody has to do it, so it's just like, you know, it's whatever. But I really am thankful that, you know, I can kind of do like my own thing. I assume like, you know, it's something where if YouTube never worked out, or just online content creation never worked out, do you think you would you know, continue doing that kind of stuff, or do you think you would really push to do something else, maybe like sell a script somewhere, like try to make it in like try to like just do something else, film like direct like TV show episodes? What do you think you would do if it wasn't for Cinemassacre.com or the YouTube channel kind of blowing up?
Oh, okay. Like if I worked on someone else's project, or
yeah, like pretty much where do you think you would be if it wasn't for, you know, the online presence that kind of started?
Where I would be, I don't know. I don't. It would be somewhere, but I don't know where exactly. It's hard to predict exactly what it would be. But picturing, like, I mean, would I do something else that wouldn't be my own project? I've actually thought about, like, it would be cool to act in a feature sometime. But to do like a role that's right for me, a role that would be something I could portray really well, and something a little different than what's expected. I think that would be pretty cool. So that's one idea, or maybe doing like a voice for an animated film. And I do stuff. I do like cameos and things like that, but I've never done anything like really substantial that isn't my own. So that's one thing. That's just a thought.
Potentially with that, yeah, would you potentially still want to do that in the future? Like, do you think that's something that you would definitely want to do, where it's just like even doing something like directing something that is like, oh, you would direct like a short, but it might not be written by you, or do you write something but it wouldn't be directed by you? Do you think that's something that you could potentially see yourself doing?
Yeah, I've thought about like anthology ideas where like each film's a different director and stuff like that. Doing an anthology is something I've thought about. Some of my ideas I've thought about maybe sometime in the future, maybe give away a bunch of scripts for other people to do.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then I'd still work on whatever one I like the most, but then I would give the other ones to somebody else. Or would I ever do it the other way around? Whatever. Some people have asked me, would you ever direct someone else's script? I don't know. I don't think I would do that actually. At least right now, I don't think so. I prefer to shoot my own stuff.
Kind of like its own different art kind of thing, you know. It's an entirely different thing where it just like instead of like having your own like full vision throughout the entire thing, it's kind of taking somebody else's vision and making it your own thing too, you know. So it's just like it's pretty different there. But just kind of wrap things up, I just kind of wanted to ask it, just like, do you have any like specific kind of like hard like filmmaking like do's or don'ts, or it's just like, did you used to have them and that you've loosened up over time? Because I found that, you know, like maybe a year ago I would say like, oh no, these things have to go this way, you have to do it this way kind of thing. And now I'm kind of like, well, you don't really have to, you know, it works out pretty well if you do it this way or kind of thing. Do you have anything like that? Do you kind of have like any like certain like guidelines things need to kind of abide by, or are you a little looser with some things that you may have been a lot stricter on in the past?
Cinemassacre has always been no rules, so I don't think there's anything that I can think of. I'm sure there are like things where it's like, okay, here's some advice here. Most of the things I would have that would be advice are more of just like sharing a story or something that went wrong, and be like, oh, well, here's something that hopefully you can avoid. But there's not really any hard like a takeaway, like a sentence where it's like, oh, here's the advice of what to avoid. Yeah, most of what I've done is just experience, sharing stories about like making of and behind the scenes stuff. So all that's in my book. So there's all kinds of stuff in there, and personal stories as well as like movie making stuff. Like basically anything I felt sharing. It was just like, okay, here's like my whole life. Here's everything. Take it or leave it, whatever you want. Because I know I've read books, and like the more personal they are and the more they share, it's so valuable to read somebody else's stuff, and then it, you know, you can relate to it maybe, or like it inspires you. So I just wanted to give this, you know, to people to hopefully, you know, inspire them as well.
Yeah, for sure. I do think, you know, it's just like, while it is good to kind of like maintain like some general guidelines with like filmmaking, it's also like, you know, rules are meant to be broken kind of thing. Like there's that whole like rule of thirds with the camera setup thing where it's just like, oh, you have to abide by this, but it's just like, you know, some of the best shots ever created kind of like escape from those boundaries a little bit.
Yeah,
you know.
there you go. Like as of one little thing, like, okay, shoot your master shot first. You know, that was always the thing. I remember being like in film class, like master shot's always first, and I'm like, well, does it have to be? I mean, there's some other reasons why maybe you might shoot like your close up first, if there's a very specific reason for it. You know, rules are always meant to be broken in some kind of way, so it's good to have guidelines and time tested, you know, strategies, but you know, don't get stuck on any one idea.
Yeah, because I feel like if you do, then it's just gonna kind of make your creation end up feeling a lot more sterile or just like stagnant. Like it's not your own. So they're always good things to live by, but hey, rules are meant to be broken. But James, thank you so much for talking with me here. It's always an honor to talk to you, man, and I'm super thankful that, you know, you're willing to do all this kind of stuff with me or for me, whatever. And yeah, it's you know, I think myself alongside everybody else is always going to be, you know, eagerly awaiting what you decide to do next.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yeah, and again, I'm honored too, and good luck with all the stuff you're working on, and the charity stuff sounds awesome. And yeah, I hope this helps out a little. So.